Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Joey Harris, and we are broadcasting from makeshift studios in the shadow of South Central Virginia. Follow the show on Twitter and Blue Sky at Cup of Joe Pod. Email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. You can support the show at paypal.me/cupofjoepod. I am also on Cash App and Venmo at the Joey Harris if you'd like to send me a couple of bucks that way. And of course, patreon.com/babykangaroomedia. For bonus episodes of the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, the Joey Harris Super Show, the Green Room, the Book Club, Baristas, and so much more, just $5 a month for hours of extra content. Over 65 pieces of content on the Patreon thus far. As today we take a look at a pivotal episode of Mid-South Wrestling from November the 16th, 1985, and it's just a little bit of extra content this week, folks. Thanksgiving week. This is scheduled to come out on Friday, so a little Black Friday bonus, I guess you could call it if you're out and about or just staying at home and relaxing. Just a little bonus show for you. So we start out with our TV, MA, and most complete form intros, followed by our Mid-South Wrestling intro. Jim Ross and Joel Watts welcome us to Mid-South Wrestling. They talk about Butch Reed being injured and Ted DiBiase taking Reed's place against Ric Flair. Jim Duggan is out complaining that Dick Slater attacked Reed on behalf of Flair. Duggan says he will be there for Reed. They flash back to the injury to Reed the previous week. Reed tells Dick Slater that he didn't finish the job and that Reed is going to take Slater out. Ric Flair comes out and says, "Where's the crying towel?" He says he's the best. Dick Murdoch comes out and says he's the one that should be challenging Flair, and Flair says to take it up with NWA president Bob Geigel. They start to have Flair versus DiBiase. Murdoch comes in and tells DiBiase to step out and let him have the shot. DiBiase says no and calls Murdoch old news. Murdoch attacks DiBiase, Flair with a high knee that knocks DiBiase to the outside. Murdoch runs DiBiase into a ring post and kicks DiBiase. DiBiase is busted open. Steve Williams comes out to check on DiBiase. Flair says he's going home without breaking a sweat. Jim Duggan versus El Casario. Casario tries to attack Duggan as soon as Duggan gets in the ring. Duggan fights back and hits some clotheslines and a backbreaker, hits another clothesline and a spear to get the pin. Bill Watts gives us an update on Ted DiBiase. He is still bleeding and he is being bandaged up. He demanded to be able to wrestle Ric Flair. Watts cautions that it may get bloody, and folks, it does get bloody. NWA World Heavyweight Championship match, Ric Flair versus Ted DiBiase. Flair attacks DiBiase right away and throws him to the outside. He chops DiBiase outside. Flair continues the assault in the ring. DiBiase comes back and hits an elbow and a fist to the head, back and forth, and they are both covered in blood. Flair with a belly-to-back suplex for a 2 count. A Teddy chant goes out. DiBiase was thrown back out again. Steve Williams comes down. DiBiase and Flair trade blows. Flair sent up and over, so take a shot if you're drinking at home. Flair suplex back in for a 1 count. DiBiase gets Flair down, but is too weak to cover. DiBiase with a backdrop. Flair begs off. DiBiase chops Flair in the corner. Flair falls down. He then comes back with an elbow. Flair goes up top, but gets caught and slammed off. DiBiase hits a back elbow. DiBiase gets a power slam, but doesn't have enough strength to cover. DiBiase gets the figure 4 on, but Flair gets to the ropes. Flair kicks DiBiase to the outside. DiBiase gets counted out. Dick Murdoch comes down and attacks DiBiase. He hits a brainbuster to DiBiase on the concrete. Jim Ross and Joel Watts talk about what just happened. Ricky Starr and Sean O'Reilly versus the Bruise Brothers, Porkchop Cash and Mad Dog Boyd. Starr attacks Cash from behind, only to get beat down. O'Reilly tagged in and he got beat as well. Boyd tagged in. He beats Starr down. The Bruise Brothers are quick tagging on Starr, and he gets splashed for the pin. The Nightmare and Eddie Gilbert with Sir Oliver Humperdinck versus Steve Constance and Perry Jackson. Constance and Gilbert start. They do a crisscross. Constance with a backdrop. Jackson tagged in and got a bear hug. Nightmare tagged in and beats Jackson down. Hits a series of forearms to Jackson. Gilbert tagged in and hit a back elbow. The Hill's doing some quick tagging. The Nightmare and Constance are tagged in. Constance beat down. Gilbert goes in and hits the hot shot to get the pin. They show Ted DiBiase being worked on. He gets moved to the back and receives oxygen as he's getting worked on. He then gets moved to an ambulance. JR then previews the next show before signing off. We then get our end credits. Final thoughts. A great show with an all-time memorable angle. You can follow me on Facebook, Threads, and Instagram at TheJoeyHarris. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast app. I would really appreciate it. We can also be found on Spotify and YouTube. Just search for The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show and don't forget to hit subscribe. Thank you for joining me. This is Joey saying so long from the heart of Virginia.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.